let us continue to stand for the ideals for which they lived and died. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Hello and welcome to Justice for Veterans. My name is David Standridge, your host. I am a licensed attorney and been practicing law since 1996. I am a VA accredited representative and licensed before the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. And my practice focuses primarily on veterans' disability benefits. We do this show, Justice for Veterans, really to accomplish three things. One is to educate the public about veterans' issues. Two is to provide helpful, useful information for the veterans community. And we also hope to spotlight veterans and thank them for their service. And so that's the reason why we do Justice for Veterans. We believe on this show that veterans deserve justice. They protected us, and now it's our turn to work hard and protect them. And that is why we conduct this show. The focus of our show is to make sure that veterans' information get to the veterans who need it the most. And we look forward to the rest of this segment today, Justice for Veterans. At this part of our show, we like to address different disability issues that are affecting veterans and the veterans community. And during this episode, I want to briefly talk about records and the importance of records. Probably more specifically talk briefly about lost records. Most of the veterans I've dealt with have come to me because they're seeking disability benefits and they've been denied by the regional office. And in the decision letter, the regional office will write, well, you're not entitled to disability because there are no service records to establish that the stressor took place, or there are no service medical records to establish that the injury took place. Something along those lines. I've seen that happen time and time again. So the question becomes, what do you do in a situation where you have lost records or you don't have records at all that establish a certain kind of event occurring? And that's where things become quite challenging. And that's why it's important to find somebody who knows about handling disability claims, because the art, and I call it an art form because it really is, the art of creating evidence that's necessary for the VA to accept is vitally important to the success of any disability claim and any disability kind of case. And so it's oftentimes difficult, but we start looking for records where you would obviously find them at the regional office or maybe even at the national office, different depending upon where they served, maybe in Army records or what have you. But the bottom line is you aren't always going to find records. That doesn't mean that your claim is doomed. What needs to happen, though, is to have a legal eye. And when I say a legal eye, what I mean is a view toward looking at the situation in terms of what the law requires. Have a legal eye about the lost record so that you can create that evidence that's necessary. If you have an issue or a question about a disability claim, please contact us at info@justicelegalgroup.com. Let's turn our attention now to Spotlight on a Veteran. This is a part of our show where we like to thank a veteran for their service, what they did for our nation, and to tell them how grateful we are for their service. Before I put the spotlight on this week's veteran, let me first of all say thank you to Peter Everett, who is a viewer of our program, who called me and told me that the little mascot that we have after we do the salute for our veteran was saluting with the wrong hand. We certainly don't want to upset or insult anybody, so we're getting that fixed as we speak. So thank you, Peter Everett, for pointing that out. But this week, let's put a spotlight on a veteran. We want to say a big thank you to Cecil Lee Puckett. Mr. Puckett served in the Army from February 1941 to October 1945. He was stationed in Arkansas before he was sent to fight in World War II. Mr. Puckett was in the 35th Infantry Division and was stationed in England, Germany, and France. He was wounded in France and was awarded the Purple Heart Medal. He came home to work on his family farm where he's still living today at this age of 95 years young. And this salute is given to Mr. Puckett by his granddaughter, Corby Puckett, and she wanted to say thank you. And we all say thank you as we salute Mr. Puckett, and thank you for your service to our nation. If you would like to give a salute to a veteran and thank them for their service and let us mention your name on air, then contact me at info@justicelegalgroup.com. Thank you. Hi, I'm David Standridge from the Justice Legal Group. Our firm represents veterans and helps them obtain benefits in their disability cases before the Veterans Administration. We believe that you worked hard to protect our nation, and we want to work hard to protect you. Welcome back to Justice for Veterans. In this episode, we're very excited to have a true New Mexican hero with us as our special guest. I consider this man to be a friend of mine, and he's doing a great job to help the veterans community here in the state of New Mexico. We are extremely honored and pleased to have as our guest today Secretary of the New Mexico Department of Veterans Services, Secretary Tim Hale. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. We are honored that you're here to be with us.
It's my pleasure to be here, Dave. Again, we do go back about as long as anybody in New Mexico that I've known, so
absolutely,
it's a great thing.
Absolutely.
It's great to be here.
I know you're incredibly busy, and you know when we were getting ready to start our program today, I saw you come in. You know, you had your entourage. You were rushing around. I know you have an incredibly busy schedule, but on behalf of myself and all the New Mexicans, we want to thank you for taking the time to educate us this morning.
Well, that's what we're here for. Everybody in our department. You know, we are a very small department in the state of New Mexico. About 33 people that are servicing about 170,000 veterans in the state of New Mexico, which is a phenomenal number when you think about the size of our state. Fifth largest landmass, but that is almost 12% of our population right now.
Wow.
Are veterans in the state of New Mexico. I work with some tribal groups where they now, because of the big National Guard influence, all the activity that's been going on in the United States for the last 10 years, we've got one tribe that is reporting that they're up to 95% of their tribe is veterans.
Wow.
So we stay very busy all around the state trying to meet the needs of all those veterans and the families because the needs are great. They really are, as you well know. Absolutely.
And Mr. Secretary, I definitely want to talk to you about what you're doing to help our veterans community. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Let's let our audience hear a little bit about who you are.
Okay.
I know you have a military history and background. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about your military background?
You bet. Well, I grew up in a military town, so to speak. My backyard was 2 miles off the end of the runway at Scott Air Force Base in Muscuda, Illinois, which is right by St. Louis. So everybody in my school district, we were either farm kids or we were base kids. And I grew up in a very, very close military community, growing up in the late 60s, early 70s. Everybody's father that I knew from the base, they were all just coming back from Vietnam. My father-in-law, just back from Vietnam. Jennifer and I, my wife, now of almost 33 years, we met in high school there at Muscuda, based on her dad coming back from service and serving there at Scott. So, grew up around the military, wanted to fly airplanes. I know you just finished up, your Little League All-Star series. Well, I never made the Little League All-Stars because I was the kid out in right field that was watching airplanes come over all the time. So that was what I wanted to do. Was able to go to St. Louis University, went into ROTC, and became an Air Force pilot. Spent almost 30 years, 28 years in uniform doing that. Got to fly around the world, got to leave my loved my hometown with cornfields in Muscuda. But ended up, when I did my retirement ceremony, I've got over 55 countries in my passport.
Wow.
So definitely had the ability to see the world. And obviously for the past 10 years of my career was really after 9/11 focused on the Middle East and everything that was going on there. So did a lot of flying, did a lot of leading people, and got to work and serve with a lot of great people. That's why when the governor offered me the opportunity to do this job, and when she was elected, it was a natural fit for me.
What branch of military service were you?
I was in the Air Force.
The Air Force.
I was in the Air Force. My father-in-law was in the Air Force. My oldest brother was in the Air Force. My next older brother and my dad were both in the Navy, and most of my cousins were in the Navy. But we had a pretty strong military background.
Now, how long have you been serving in your position as secretary?
Been in the secretary for 2.5 years now.
Wow.
Sometimes it seems like just yesterday. Sometimes it seems like it's been a while. But we're over the halfway point for this term of the governor, and we just had a cabinet meeting this morning, and it just really seems like it's flying by, because there's, again, you see the time go fast when you've got a lot to do, and we've got a lot to do in this state, especially for our veterans.
Absolutely. And Mr. Secretary, you've been serving for 2.5 years now. How did you get this position?
Well, I was when I retired from the Air Force, I came out to Albuquerque to work for Lockheed Incorporated. I've been coming to Albuquerque since 1982 for different phases of training. Everything they do out at the 58th Special Operations Wing, I've been coming to do that special operations training ever since I was a lieutenant. So when I retired, there were job openings at Lockheed out in the training complex. I jumped on that, put my toe into the local political waters just to see what that would bring, and get a little bit more involved in what most of our civics classes teach us about politics, et cetera. And by the end of the first campaign, I arrived right before about the August-September timeframe as the election was getting ready to happen. So came in right in the middle of the whole canvassing the neighborhoods, getting out the vote process. So I got to know some of the folks that were working with the governor's campaign, some of the others. My kids were all home for a Christmas break after the election. We had been out at the shooting range the day before they were going back to school. I was going back to work, and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a call from Ryan Cangelosi, the governor's former assistant chief of staff, and he asked me if I'd like to come up and talk to Governor Martinez about a possible job. And when I asked him what the job was, he said it was for the Secretary of Veteran Services. And I told him, so, well, Ryan, that would probably be the one job that I would come up and talk about. So 8 hours later, I was telling my bosses at Lockheed that I think I've got a new gig that I'm going to, and they were very supportive, and we're just glad to be here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're doing a great job. And you also had to be then confirmed by the legislature, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Got to be confirmed by the Senate. Got to go through that whole process. Again, so much you don't learn about in high school civics.
Right.
So it's been a great learning experience. Again, we're beyond the 2-year point now, so I feel kind of like a veteran again.
Yeah, and time is a premium with you, and I do want to talk about the services that your department helps our veterans community with.
Right.
But I also want to talk about some of behind the scenes things that we don't see, and that's the legislative actions that you're involved with, that you and the governor talk about. Can you tell our audience what are some of the legislative agendas that are going on in terms of your representations of the veterans community?
Well, that ranges everywhere from trying to raise funds through like the Veterans License Plate Fund. Those are things that the citizens of the state of New Mexico can help contribute to the welfare of the veterans in the community by buying some of those specialized license plates, the Patriot Plate. So those actions take place by our legislation. My deputy, Alan Martinez, is my chief legislative writer. He writes all those. The tax breaks for veterans. The federal government had a great program put in place last year to give a tax break to companies that hire veterans when they come home. Well, we crafted a similar legislation that, in addition to the federal laws, gives an additional tax break for New Mexico companies that will hire our veterans when they come back. So those are the things we do every year. Right now, we're crafting away, working with a group of economists, trying to develop a solid military retirees income tax program so that we can get in line with some of the 25 other states around the country that don't charge income tax on military retirees. Because we've got so many high-tech jobs and other areas that need workers in the state of New Mexico that our military veterans are very qualified to do. And if we can get a retiree who can come back in, they bring back their retiree pay. Most of them have some kind of a VA stipend, whether that's through their GI Bill, the other benefits, the disability benefits. That money all comes back into the state, and it's turned over many, many times. Most economists will tell you 3 to 4 times those dollars come back. So if we take, if we get another 100 veterans to come into this state and retire, we're going to be talking over $1 million of money just coming into the state that is not causing any social costs, because the veteran already comes back, that retiree comes in with a health care plan. They come in with a retirement plan. They've already got roots, and they're all very highly educated. Our military today is the most highly educated military in the world, and it's the most highly educated we've had in the history of the United States. Wow. So the number of college degrees, everything we need for places like the spaceport, even down at the level of the mechanics that we're going to need to work on those types of vehicles, fiber optics, the different types of, it's not just sheet metal anymore. It's all those fibers that go into building, a modern spacecraft, the electronics. We've got military members in this state at Cannon Air Force Base, at Kirtland, down at White Sands Missile Range, through the naval test activities down at White Sands. They're already prepared to take jobs in that industry. But there's other states that are also out there trying to lure them away and build those industries in their states. We want them to stay here in New Mexico. We want to build those businesses and watch them just take off, no pun intended, sure, here in New Mexico. And there's no reason why we shouldn't. So that income tax incentive is one of those economic development plans that we're working with the governor's staff, we're working with the legislative staffs to really try and come together and put together a solid program that benefits the veterans of the state and therefore every other citizen in this state.
That's incredible. Is there anything that any of our veterans in our community can do to help you with that process?
What we need the veterans to do is just get out and talk about it with their legislators, talk about it with their neighbors. The old adage that all politics is local has not changed in a couple of centuries. So letting all of our state legislators know the importance that this is, what they as veterans have brought to the state of New Mexico, and what bringing more of them back in will do is so essential. When I look at some of the numbers for the states around us, Texas, their number of retirees grew last year. Arizona, the number of retirees grew. Colorado, the number of retirees grew. We had a net loss of 10 retirees last year in the state of New Mexico.
Wow.
So we are not making ground on that. We've got to get some things in place to work the taxes, to bring jobs, to move veterans to be moved to come here. We've got a great environment, great local areas to live, great Little League ball teams. We've got to convince people that economically it's the right move to come back to New Mexico.
Well, I for one, want to thank you for the forefront that you're positioning us to be in terms of helping our veterans, and it's a great thing you're doing to help them in that regard to the military, retirees, income tax, the tax breaks for hiring. I mean, those are just great dynamic things to help our economy, so thank you. But let me shift your attention real quick because I have such a limited time with you. I want to ask you about, this is going to be a difficult question, I think, in terms of you operating with all the different factions of veterans in the veterans community. What's the biggest problem you see facing veterans right now?
The biggest problem I see facing veterans right now is really the volume. We have so many veterans in this state and nationwide, and with the drawdowns in Iraq, the drawdowns in Afghanistan, and what is already being seen in the news about the drawdown in the size of our military, we're going to have a lot of veterans who are going to come home, but they've got to come home and we've got to be able to provide them jobs. We've got to be able to get them into the right educational track to prepare them for jobs they may not be prepared for. And we've got to take care of those mental health needs that are so prevalent, whether it's from World War II, through Korea, through Vietnam, through the Cold War and Gulf War eras, to our modern wars. When we talk about post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury, PTS and TBI, they've really taken on a whole lot of attention in the current war, but they're not new. We have veterans now coming in the door from World War II, from Korea, lots more from Vietnam, who, as they've taken off their uniforms, they've gone into a more retired mode, there are doors opening up in the back of their heads where those doors have been closed for decades, keeping down the post-traumatic stress. They've got some of the things that they experienced coming back to haunt them now. It's been a well-known, well-publicized area with the Vietnam veterans, but even that group, with the number of business people who, again, were able to suppress or will keep their post-traumatic stress under control, we're seeing it now starting to redevelop back into post-traumatic stress disorder. And then with our modern veterans, with the classic 3, 4, 5, 6 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, we seem to be seeing a higher incidence of post-traumatic stress disorder. We've got the classic signature injuries of IEDs, percussions, that's causing a lot more traumatic brain injury, TBI type of injuries that we're having to work with. So we in our department, we're working with the VA, we're working with community groups, we're trying to fill those gaps that maybe the VA can't cover in all parts of the state. So we work with the VA, but we also are going out on our own with our own Department of Health, with our behavioral health consortium, to try and find out how can we as a state lead the way in the nation, not just so that we can be said we're the first, but because we've got such a high population of veterans here in this state that deserve that care, that need that care, and those families who take care of them also. So we've tried to bring together some groups to put some programs together that sometimes don't take legislation. For instance, the governor announced, and we launched back in March, the Returning Veterans Counseling and Therapy Project. That's a huge milestone event because we've got 500 mental health care providers around the state that have stood up and said, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and talk about things needing to be done. I'm going to do something about it. And they've offered a year of pro bono mental health care for newly returning veterans and their families.
Wow. That
is huge. The VA has gone out and they're trying to hire 1,600 new mental health care providers across the nation. We've got 500 mental health care providers in the state of New Mexico that have stood up and said, we will help with this issue. We've got the Behavioral Health Consortium and our groups that work the veteran issues that have come together, and we've put together a website. We've put together a warm call line so that veterans and families can find help when they need it. That website is at bhsdstar.org/veterans. That will give you a map that's interactive where you can push on a county, and it will give you a list of the healthcare providers who have said, we will help with our veterans in the mental health community.
That's awesome.
It's a huge, huge thing. And then there's a warm line that veterans can call into to start getting input into different areas where they can find help, whether that's through the VA, whether that's through our mental health care providers. And that warm line is at 1-888-920-6333. Somebody will answer that phone and help get a veteran or their family connected with the help they need. And then if nothing else will work, we've got 800 numbers that we're going to put up on the screen to get into the Department of Veteran Services. And the nice thing about having a small staff is I can guarantee you that if someone calls in with an issue, we will move mountains to make sure that that veteran or that family is getting help. We can give individualized attention that sometimes the VA can't do. That's why the legislature, that's why the governor, that's why the people of New Mexico have put this department together to help veterans down on the street in the communities where you live.
Awesome. And Mr. Secretary, you mentioned, and you gave us the sheet that we're going to put up on the screen as well, but you mentioned different phone numbers and websites, and we're going to put this up on the screen, but things for how to get access to the GI Bill, homeless veterans help, PTSD vet centers, even the National Cemetery information. We'll put that all up on the screen, but those are all initiatives and things that your department is involved with, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well,
so basically, you can consider it from the time a person joins the military to the time we're giving them final honors The New Mexico Department of Veteran Services is involved in that veteran and that family's lives. And I want to emphasize, we are also working with the New Mexico National Guard, their Veteran and Family Services Support Department. We're all trying to reach out to those families as well. Because if a veteran comes home broken in some way, they don't heal themselves. It takes the community, and it really takes that family to help bring the healing. So we're working with all those different facets.
That's awesome. Well, Mr. Secretary, we are running out of time. I knew we were going to do that. I didn't even make it through halfway of my outline that I had for you, but if you don't mind, we'd love to have you on again.
We will absolutely come back, and you know, this studio is right next to one of the Donut Mart shops. I can be back here in a heartbeat.
Well, that's good to know. So we want to say thank you to our very special guests we have with us today, and we appreciate Secretary Tim Hale being with us. As he's already identified for us, a remarkable individual who's leading our state, in fact, leading our nation in a lot of veteran-related issues. And again, we've put up on the screen the whole contact information of important phone numbers and websites. You've heard the Secretary give the information about the pro bono mental health providers with that website and the phone number. And Mr. Secretary, what is the phone number people can reach your office at?
The best number for my office, and I'll go up here and hit this one, is 866-433-8387.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Secretary, thank you again for being with us. Again, our special guest today has been Secretary Tim Hale, and we're honored that he took time out of his busy schedule to be with us. We want to say thank you to him. If you would like to appear on Justice for Veterans, then email us at info@justicelegalgroup.com. We want to thank you for joining us today and watching our program. We're excited about the opportunity to bring information to our veterans community and hoping to assist them in the needs and the problems that they face on a daily basis. And we're excited about the initiatives that are happening right here in the state of New Mexico and throughout the country with special leaders like Secretary Hale. And as we say goodbye today, we want to thank all of the veterans, all the men and women who have bravely served our nation, who've served on our behalf, and without you, we know that we could not do what we are doing today. So with that, we say thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you for watching Justice for Veterans. A special thanks to the Ronald Reagan Foundation, the Justice Legal Group, and the veterans who have made this show possible. Tune in next week for a new episode of Justice for Veterans.